All right, so how do you become the change that you want to see while you're walking through the ways of disobedience? We're going to jump off into 2 Corinthians 10 and number 3. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. So that's just saying we have to know what it is that God has given to us that we can go against the ways of disobedience. And it's saying we're not dealing with the flesh per se, but it's the spirit. And when you know how spirit is also carried through word, that's when you start to monitor even more what you're saying or how you're saying it, right? So let's look at Deuteronomy 4:6. He says, keep and do them. So we're talking about becoming the change that you want to see, also understanding how you're walking through the ways of disobedience, but how you can change that to become the change that you want to see, right? So keep therefore and do them. What is it talking about? It's talking about the law of life that God gave us for the heritage. All right, follow this. Keep therefore and do them. Deuteronomy 4:6. For this is your wisdom and understanding in the sight of the nations. See, this is why we're not where we need to be, because we don't understand, what the law of life is for the heritage. We're out here under the ways of disobedience. We're following after the ways of other nations, not understanding who we are, that we are also of the children of God. We have fallen. We lost our name. We lost our heritage. We lost our identity. And we're here calling ourselves Black, African American, you name it. But we are Israelites. We are the children of God. We own the strongest name in the world, Israel. I am. Am is the ordinary term for Israel, right? He said, which shall hear these statutes, talking about in the sight of all nations. It says, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. This is what's written about us. And because we've fallen and we've went after the ways of disobedience, we're not seen, as wise, nor understanding. We're not even seen as a people. 2 Corinthians 10 and 5, it says, casting down imagination. Now, how do you cast down imagination if you're not understanding what your wisdom is, if you're not understanding what the law of life for the heritage is? You have no way of casting down the imagination. See, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalt itself against the knowledge of God. That's the key, the knowledge of God. What is the knowledge of God exactly? That you can understand how to use it to cast down imaginations. Well, in 4:6, he expressed to us that it's the law of life that he gave us for the heritage, because that's the thing that the other nations would see and hear these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. So we're absent the knowledge of God, that we can cast down the imaginations, that we can even understand how our weapons are not carnal, but mighty through God, right? To the pulling down of strongholds. That's us using the knowledge of God, right? He says, let me see, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. We must know what the knowledge of God is, that we even know what high thing is exalting itself, against it. He says, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. So we have to challenge everything, because people today would tell you, is this truth, that truth, their truth. I mean, They've distorted what truth is. There's only one truth, and it's the knowledge of God. Everything else is false, right? So Malachi 2:6, he says, the law of truth was in his mouth, and iniquity was not found in his lips. He walked with me in peace and equity, and did turn many away from iniquity. How so? Right? That's the knowledge of God. That's the law of life for the heritage. That's the thing that most of us we're not familiar with it. We're trying to get reacclimated, but if you follow the doctrine of Christianity, they're encouraging people not to even be concerned, with it. That's a problem. Number 2 Corinthians 10:6, and this is the last verse for this right here. And having a readiness to revenge all disobedience. So you have to know what the knowledge of God is, that you can challenge yourself when you're in transgression to God. This is how you can become the change that you want to see. He says, when your obedience is fulfilled. So let me read that again. And having in a readiness to revenge all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled. That means you've dealt with the introspection, of yourself, and you've used the knowledge of God to overcome, to be born again, to be a new creature. And with that, that's how you become, the change that you want to see and destroy the ways of disobedience.